boy who can fly, a magical fairy, a pirate haunted by the sound of ticking time, a land where you never grow old. It sounds like a dream come true. But what if it's not? What if Neverland isn't a paradise, but a trap? What if Peter Pan isn't a hero, but something else entirely? Peter Pan's story isn't just a timeless fairy tale. It's surprisingly relatable in today's world. This isn't just a story about staying young forever. It's a story shaped by abandonment, haunted by the fear of time, and driven by the unsettling question: what happens when you refuse to grow up?
All children except one grow up.
Before Peter Pan flew through our imaginations, he was an idea, a spark born from the life of one man, shaped by grief, friendship, and a longing to escape the weight of reality. James Matthew Barrie was born in 1860 in Kirriemuir, Scotland, the 9th of 10 children. But his childhood was forever changed by a tragedy that haunted his family. When Barrie was just 6 years old, his older brother David, his mother's favorite, died in an ice skating accident right before his 14th birthday. The loss devastated his mother, who was said to have found some comfort in the idea that David would never grow up, that he would remain a child forever. For young Barrie, this tragedy became the foundation of a lifelong obsession with youth, memory, and the fear of time moving forward. But Peter Pan didn't fully take shape until Barrie met the Llewellyn Davies boys: George, John, Peter, Michael, and Nico. Barrie first encountered the family during a visit through London's Kensington Gardens in 1897, where he befriended the boys and their mother, Sylvia. Barrie became like a second father to the boys after the death of their father, Arthur, in 1907. When their mother Sylvia died just 3 years later, Barrie became their unofficial guardian. It was in these moments, watching the boys at play, that Peter Pan was born. A boy who could fly, who led a band of lost children, and who never had to face the harshness of adulthood. But while the story seemed magical, Barrie's attachment to the boys wasn't without controversy. Some viewed his close bond with them as unusual, though Barrie himself always maintained that his relationship with the family was innocent, a way of preserving the childlike wonder that tragedy had taken from his own life. Barrie once wrote, "Nothing that happens after we are 12 matters very much." To him, childhood wasn't just a phase. It was a sacred space, untouched by time. But Peter Pan wasn't just about celebrating youth. It was a warning, a story about what happens when we refuse to grow. The first version of Peter Pan appeared in Barrie's 1902 novel, The Little White Bird. But the story became iconic after his 1904 stage play and the 1911 novel, Peter and Wendy. Audiences were captivated by Peter, the boy who could fly, who battled pirates, and who escaped the inevitable march of time. Barrie's tale enchanted the world, but for the real Lost Boys, the story was far from a fairy tale. Peter Llewellyn Davies, the boy who lent his name to the character, later referred to Peter Pan as that terrible masterpiece. Haunted by his association with the Eternal Boy, Peter grew to resent the story, calling it a curse. J.M. Barrie's life was shaped by grief and an unshakable fear of change. It was this fear of change that gave us Peter Pan. Every great adventure starts with a choice, and Wendy's begins with the promise of a boy who could fly, a living promise of everything childhood dreams are made of. In that moment, she wasn't just choosing to follow Peter Pan. She was deciding whether to leave behind the world she knew for one that promised something more. Like many of us at the edge of childhood, she stood at the window, caught between the comfort of familiarity and the possibilities of the unknown. In stories, windows often symbolize the unknown, a portal to something new. But they also represent something fragile, the boundary between safety and risk, reality and dreams. As children, the world feels endless, filled with adventure at every turn. We run toward the unknown without hesitation, unaware of what we're leaving behind. But growing up means realizing that every step forward asks us to let go of something familiar. For Wendy, the window wasn't just an exit, it was a threshold. And once you cross it, you can never come back the same. To fly is every child's greatest wish, freedom from rules, gravity, and consequence. But flying isn't just freedom, it's an escape. The question every adventurer must answer: is it a dream worth chasing, or a trap you didn't see until it was too late? Peter Pan is the boy who never grows up. But what if his defiance of time isn't freedom? It's out of fear, a refusal to move forward, to change, to let life shape him into something new. At first glance, Peter's life seems perfect. Endless adventure, no rules, no responsibilities, being in charge. But the truth is, Peter's world never changes. His adventures may be endless, but they're always the same. He isn't moving forward. He's stuck. When you deny time, you deny growth. And without growth, what's left? The same stories, the same games, the same endings, over and over again. To Peter, growing up feels like a prison, the loss of control. Time moves forward, and with it comes responsibility, heartbreak, and goodbyes. So instead of growing, Peter chooses flight. Freedom in the form of never feeling too much and never staying long enough to lose what matters. Peter Pan's name and his use of a handmade flute suggest a connection to the Greek god Pan, a mythological figure. In Greek mythology, Pan was often depicted playing the panpipes, symbolizing his playful and untamed spirit, a striking parallel to Peter Pan, who plays his own flute-like instrument. Pan was the god of the wild, nature, shepherds and flocks, but also of mischief, music, and freedom. He was a chaotic spirit who reveled in freedom from societal constraints. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Peter Pan is the embodiment of youth and freedom. But what if there's another side to him? Over the years, theories have surfaced, from questions of why he's in Neverland to the nature of his true motives. There's a lot to unpack. If you'd like a deeper look into these theories about Peter Pan's darker side, let me know. In literature and psychology, shadows often symbolize fears and inner conflict. Peter's shadow reflects his fear of maturity, responsibility, and emotional vulnerability, things associated with adulthood. It's almost like he is haunted by what growing up could mean. The fact that Peter's shadow can act independently suggests that parts of himself are slipping away or beyond his control. In some interpretations, it's seen as a metaphor for the inevitability of change and growth, no matter how much Peter resists. Unlike Peter himself, who is magical, carefree, and seemingly invulnerable, his shadow is flawed, torn, and vulnerable. It shows that Peter is not entirely invincible, and that, deep down, there's a part of him grappling with the consequences of staying in Neverland forever. For the Lost Boys, Neverland isn't just a magical island. It's the only home they've ever known. These are children who fell out of their prams and were never claimed, forgotten by the world. Neverland becomes their sanctuary, a place where they can be together, where they can belong. In the Victorian era, death and childhood were often intertwined. With child mortality heartbreakingly common, stories like Peter Pan gave families a strange kind of comfort, the idea that the lost children lived on, playing forever in a place where they would never grow old, never grow weary, and never be forgotten. But Neverland's sense of belonging comes with a cost. And in their hearts, the Lost Boys might wonder, what would it feel like to have a real home, with real parents and a world beyond the games and battles? For now, Neverland is enough. But is belonging truly a gift if it means never moving forward? In J.M. Barrie's Peter and Wendy, Neverland is a place of eternal childhood, where pirates, fairies, and endless adventures exist, and time stands still. But Neverland isn't just a fantasy world. It's a symbol of something deeply human, the desire to escape reality. And in today's world, our obsession with escape is stronger than ever. We create our own escapes. From social media to fully immersive gaming worlds, people can fly away at will and live out adventures in spaces where reality can't reach them. These worlds act as modern Neverlands, where we can be who we want to be, free from the weight of reality. In the modern world, too much escapism can lead to feelings of isolation, detachment, and the fear of missing out on real-life connections. While these escapes do provide comfort, they can also leave us feeling lost if we disconnect from reality for too long. In Neverland, time stands still, but that's not the real world. Here, time never stops ticking. Today, we also see a similar obsession with fighting time. From anti-aging products to fitness trends to the curation of versions of ourselves on social media, the modern world tempts us with ways to pause time. But no matter what we try, the clock keeps ticking. The question Barrie leaves us with is this: how long can we stay in Neverland before reality catches up to us? In every story, there's a hero and a villain. Hook is a villain in Peter Pan's story, but he's also something else entirely. A man caught in a war he can never win, haunted by the ticking reminder of his mortality. Captain Hook isn't just Peter Pan's enemy, he's his opposite. While Peter clings to youth, Hook is haunted by the one thing Peter refuses to face: time. Hook's hatred for Peter Pan runs deeper than rivalry. It's personal. Peter represents everything Hook has surrendered to: youth, freedom, and the belief that you can live forever. The Hook is a constant reminder that Hook is mortal. The fact that he has already lost something to Peter, and the passage of time fuels his obsession with defeating Peter and regaining his sense of power. The Hook makes Hook's role as Peter's nemesis more dramatic. Every encounter between them feels like a swashbuckling, life or death fight. Hook's missing hand and his hook replacement can be seen as a metaphor for loss, vulnerability, and obsession. It represents how Hook's life is no longer whole. He's fixated on revenge and haunted by the ticking crocodile, a symbol of time slowly eating away at him. The crocodile isn't just a predator. It's a creature that's both ancient and relentless. Crocodiles are often seen as timeless, almost prehistoric beings. They wait patiently, never in a rush, yet their bite is final. This makes the crocodile the perfect symbol for time. it moves steadily forward, devouring everything in its path, and no amount of cunning can evade it forever. It's a constant reminder that time is always moving forward, whether you run from it or not. For Hook, the ticking clock represents death creeping closer. This makes the crocodile a manifestation of Hook's greatest fear, that no matter how long he fights, how far he sails, or how many battles he wins, his time is running out. In a world where children can fly, where shadows have minds of their own, and where no one grows old, belief is the thread that holds everything together. But belief is fragile, and Tinkerbell is a perfect example of how quickly that magic can fade. Tinkerbell isn't just Peter Pan's companion. She's a symbol of something deeper, belief itself. Her very existence depends on being believed in. Without belief, she fades away until she's nothing but a memory. If people stop believing in her, Tinkerbell begins to flicker and dim. And what does that say about the things we believe in as children? How easily do they slip away when the world tells us they aren't real? As children, we believe in the impossible without question. Fairies, magic, adventure. But as we grow, belief becomes fragile, worn thin by the weight of reality. And once we stop believing, the magic fades. Tinkerbell isn't just a fairy. She's the embodiment of that fleeting, sacred faith we all have as children. The belief that anything is possible. But belief needs nurturing, and when it's neglected, it disappears. The loss of belief isn't always loud. It can be quiet, like the fading glow of a firefly. And that's what makes it so difficult. It slips away before you even notice it's gone. In the end, what do we really lose when we stop believing in the impossible? It's not just the magic, it's the wonder. The ability to see beyond the ordinary, to hope, to dream. Tinkerbell's light may flicker, but if belief can bring her back, maybe it can bring back something in us too. If you believe in this video, hit that like button. Your belief keeps the magic alive. The Lost Boys, children without a home, without rules, without responsibilities. In Neverland, they're free to play forever. But is that really freedom? Or are they stuck in someone else's dream of endless childhood? To the outside world, the Lost Boys' life seems idyllic. No parents, no school, no chores. But freedom without growth can feel more like being frozen in place. And that's the tragedy of the Lost Boys. They aren't truly free. They're trapped in Peter Pan's story, living out the same battles, the same games with no way out. They call it play, but how much of it is just survival? How long can you fight an imaginary war before you forget what you were fighting for in the first place? The Lost Boys may follow Peter Pan, but they never question why they can't leave. They've become background characters, stuck in a story where they never grow, never change, never get to know what else might be out there. But then there's Wendy. While Peter leads with excitement and chaos, Wendy offers something different: structure, comfort, and the promise of something the Lost Boys don't even realize they've lost: home. In stories, home isn't always a place, it's a feeling. And for the Lost Boys, Wendy becomes the mother figure they never had, because she knows what Peter doesn't. Adventure means nothing if you have nowhere to come back to. To Peter, growing up is the end of everything. But to Wendy, it's a beginning. A chance to shape your story instead of just playing someone else's role. And that's what the lost boys need most. Not just freedom, but purpose. Not just adventure, but love. In every great adventure, there comes a moment of choice. The moment when the story shifts from what you're running toward to what you're leaving behind. For Wendy, that choice was never about losing her sense of wonder. It was about deciding what truly mattered. Wendy loved the magic of Neverland, the flying, the stories, the endless adventure. But deep down, she knew something Peter never did. No adventure is complete without a home to return to. Peter offered her the freedom to stay young forever. But Wendy knew that true freedom doesn't come from escaping life. It comes from embracing it. For Wendy, growing up didn't mean giving up wonder. It meant learning how to carry it with her, even as the world around her changed. Growing up doesn't mean losing the magic. It means finding the strength to live in both worlds, the world of dreams and the world of reality. Peter is bold, fearless, and reckless in his refusal to grow. But Wendy's strength is quieter, the kind that doesn't need to defy time to feel brave. She faces what Peter fears most: change. Every story ends, but Peter Pan's never does. While others move on, he stays the same. And that's the tragedy of Peter Pan. He didn't just lose his friends, he lost the chance to become more than just a memory. Time moves on without him. The people he loved grow up, live their lives, and remember him only as a story. But Peter? He's frozen, watching from the outside. When you never grow up, you can never move forward. The cost of staying in the story forever is that no one stays with you. Peter Pan wanted to escape the weight of time, but in the end, he wasn't free. He was alone. And when you're alone long enough, it's not freedom you feel, but the weight of everything you've lost. Peter may be king of Neverland, but even kings can be prisoners of their own stories. Peter Pan is the boy who never grows up, but his eternal youth comes at a devastating cost. Peter's refusal to age isn't just magical, it's tragic. He loses everyone he loves. First Wendy, who chooses to grow up and return home. Then her brothers, who follow her, leaving Neverland behind. Eventually, even Wendy turns their adventures into nothing more than bedtime stories for her children. He forgets Wendy's brothers and many of their shared adventures. Even though he remains forever young, he's also forever alone. It's as though his memories are the price he pays for staying young, free of emotional ties, but also free of the connections that make life meaningful. Without memory, we lose the map that guides us through our own story. Memories remind us of where we've been, what we've overcome, and what we've loved. Without them, our sense of self becomes unanchored. Memories bind us to others. They're the shared moments that create bonds deeper than words. A first adventure, a quiet goodbye, or an inside joke. Relationships are built on shared memories. To grow, we need to remember where we came from. Each memory, good or bad, teaches us something, making us wiser and stronger. Memories of success inspire us, while memories of mistakes teach us resilience. They help us learn and evolve instead of repeating old patterns. Memories can soothe us during hard times by reminding us that happiness and hope are possible because they've existed before. To remember is to carry the weight of life, but to not remember is to lose the pieces of yourself that make life worth living. Peter's connection to the Darlings isn't just about storytelling. It hints at something much deeper, his unacknowledged desire for a family and the love he denies himself by choosing to stay in Neverland. Peter eavesdrops on Wendy's stories about adventure, courage, and home. While he dismisses the idea of growing up, these tales allow him to experience, even briefly, the warmth of familial love. It's a safe way for him to engage with something he secretly yearns for but can't admit to himself. Stories represent connection, memory, and belonging, things Peter outwardly rejects but still craves. His obsession with Wendy's stories suggests he feels a void that Neverland and the Lost Boys cannot fill. Peter's denial is rooted in fear. To embrace family life would mean accepting responsibility and vulnerability. He'd have to grow up, face time, and risk losing his carefree identity, a price he's unwilling to pay. Peter positions himself as the leader of the Lost Boys. Yet, he avoids being a true caretaker, instead perpetuating the endless playtime of Neverland. Peter Pan views Wendy as a nurturing figure. This is Peter's subconscious attempt to recreate the family life he observes at the Darling nursery. As the adventure ends, the Lost Boys returned with Wendy, John, and Michael, leaving Neverland behind. The Darlings, with open hearts, welcomed them into their home. The boys, once lost, finally found the family they had always longed for. Yet Peter stayed behind in Neverland and remained forever the boy who would never grow up. Even after Wendy leaves Neverland, Peter keeps coming back. Despite his fleeting memory, a feeling draws him to the Darlings' home. It's as though, even without remembering, he senses the love and belonging that he's always denied himself. Peter, still eternally young, visits Wendy but finds she's grown older. He takes Wendy's daughter Jane to Neverland instead, continuing the cycle, but she too will one day grow up and leave Neverland, just like her mother. The Darlings symbolize what Peter could have if he were willing to grow up: love, connection, and belonging. Peter Pan, the boy who can fly, the boy who never grew up, is caught in a cycle of longing for something he'll never have. And maybe that is the true tragedy of Peter Pan. Thank you for joining me for this story. Until next time, stay mystical. If you made it this far and enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to join our growing community of mystic seekers. Who is your favorite character from Peter Pan? Or who do you relate to the most? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.